2時間前までここに座っていたリック・ルービン。リック・ルービンと今回仕事して良かったことは何ですか？
God bless Bob Rock. 5 records, almost 20 years with Bob. What a great guy, great friend. Nothing but love and respect to him. But there came a point a couple of years ago when we all realized that it was time to try and work with somebody else, and try to get some different energy in here and just try to reinvent the wheel somehow, and there never was anybody else other than Rick. I always knew that if we weren't going to make a record with Bob, we were going to make it with Rick. So Rick came in and sat down and said that he felt that we, he wanted to help us make the best record that we were capable of making, and he felt that a couple things that we should maybe consider, writing a record that felt like we'd never made a record before. Literally, if we're trying to get a record contract with these guys, what would be the 10 best songs we could write? What would be a way of kind of maybe being a little bit inspired by some of the records we've made in the past, like some of the records like Ride the Lightning and Master Puppets and so on, and Justice for All. Could we maybe think a little bit about how those records were made, not copy them, but kind of think about what did we think about when we were making those records, what kind of music were we listening to when we were making those records, what was it that inspired us when we made those records. And you gotta understand, as you know, we've spent a lot of time in the last 15 years making sure that we never did anything that would infringe on those records, that we didn't do anything that we would never wanted to go back and try to do anything to make those records anything less than what they were. So we went as far away from those records as possible, and Rick Rubin made it okay for us to be inspired by those records again, and also 2 years ago when we played in a couple shows in Osaka and Tokyo and in Germany and all these places where we revisited Master Puppets for the 20th anniversary. It kind of inspired us to kind of think a little bit along those lines again. And so Rick has been very instrumental with helping shape the general sound. Rick is not a guy who spends a lot of time on the board. He sits on the couch, he listens, he closes his eyes, and he tells you what he thinks. Rick is more like an A&R guy. He's a great pair of ears, So Rick comes in and, every couple weeks or once a month or whatever, and sits down and listens to everything and tells you what can be better and what we're not doing good enough and blah, blah, blah. And he's been very, very valuable. It's been a very different experience than the 15, 20 years with Bob Rock. But I have to say that the guy who sits and does everything on a daily basis, Greg Fiddleman, has absolutely been invaluable also, and much credit to him, because he's been here every single minute of this record in the last year and a half. And without him, we wouldn't be sitting here talking about the record being done. So we have to give some respect out to Greg Fiddleman too.
ところで、アルバム3曲今聴かせてもらいましたけども、それはアルバムタイトルのデスマグネティックっていうのはアルバムのどういう部分を指してタイトルにしたんでしょうか？
Well, Death Magnetic is a lyric in actually in one of the songs you heard in the song called My Apocalypse, which is I think the super fast song you heard. It's just a lyric. We were sitting up at HQ a couple of months ago trying to figure out what to call the album, and obviously there's a thread kind of going through the songs. A lot of the songs deal with death and suicide and redemption and forgiveness and all this type of stuff. Kind of the crazy relationship that we all have with death, about like we know it's there, we don't want to think about it, we have to think about it, we know it's inevitable, but all this, so it's kind of like a magnet. It's like you're drawn to it and you try to go away from it. So it's about that kind of energy that pushes and pulls you. And most of the songs really have that as a common thread. I mean, all the songs are really variations on that theme. It's not like there's a couple songs about, you know, driving in your car or going to the beach with your girlfriend or whatever. It's pretty much all about death and suicide and forgiveness and all this kind of stuff. Kurt Hammett actually suggested Death Magnetic, and we all kind of sat and looked at each other, and we thought it was kind of cool because it's a little bit abstract, it's a little bit mysterious. It sounds good, it looks good when you write it down. So we thought it was kind of cool because, and also, you know, it wasn't really obvious. Nobody really know what exactly does it really mean. I don't know. We're just sitting here kind of making this stuff up as we go along, but it seemed like cool. And the other album title that we had, which we were all really pushing for, our managers thought. I don't know why I'm telling you this.
Yeah, come on. Come on.
Our managers thought that it would be a really bad idea to call the album that, because it was this long album title that had the word suicide in it. And our managers thought that maybe we shouldn't have an album, you know, with the word suicide in it. So we're like, you know what, fair enough. So Death Magnetic at least is a little more abstract and a little more mysterious, and it sounds pretty cool. So, you know, it's been around for a couple months now. We like ourselves saying it, and people seem to like to say it. And there's some crazy artwork with a coffin and all this stuff. It's all kind of pretty cool. And like I said, the main thing is that it really, in some way, it kind of is what unifies all the songs lyrically. You know, pretty much all the songs are tied to that somehow. So I mean, you know, Metallica doesn't make concept albums, as you know. I mean, we're not Marillion or Genesis, but this is probably as close to a concept as we'll ever get, you know.
まあ僕のニューアルバムの3曲しか聴いてない印象なんですけども、随分オーガニックだなという印象を受けました。どうでしょうか、すごいオーガニックなアルバムじゃないですか。
Yeah, it's one of Rick Rubin's favorite words is organic. When he came up a couple of years ago, so, you know what this is back here. This is a Pro Tools rig, right? And it's like, do away with the Pro Tools. You know, be organic. Do like you used to do. You know, no computers. So, of course, it's pretty much impossible to do anything nowadays without a computer. But we're trying. And I'm not saying that computers haven't been involved, but you know, it's all about keeping it as organic as possible. And Rick is a real guardian of that. You know, there aren't a lot of overdubs. There's not a lot of you know harmonies and doubling and prettying things up and all this type of stuff. It's pretty raw, and Rick really tries to get things in your face and make everything really loud and raw and stuff like that. And I'm pretty sure we've accomplished that because everybody that's heard the record says the same thing you just said. So I'm pretty sure that we've accomplished it being raw and organic. You know, I think it's really nice to hear James sing like that again without having a lot of doubling and layering of the vocals. I think that his voice, when his voice is by itself, a single track, it has a lot of emotion and a lot of vulnerability, and it just sounds very pure. And so Rick really wanted James's vocals to be more about emotion than about singing, more less about ability and more about kind of vulnerability and so on. And one of the big things Rick did actually was he made us tune our guitars up to what's called E. Instead of, we've been a half step down in E flat. So James would sing a little higher and because he thought that James used to sing in E. We used to play and sing in E on Master Puppets and Justice, and it was after the Black album we went down a half step to E flat. And so Rick was really instrumental in bringing us back up, and because he felt that James's vocals would just be a lot more raw and powerful up there. And I think when I hear the stuff, that it sounds very much like that, you know, very raw, stripped of not too many overdubs and, you know, effects and all this stuff. You know, it's pretty raw. And so he walked into the studio 2 years ago and said, make a raw record, boys, keep it organic. So I guess we did. So it has a happy ending, at least as far as Rick is concerned.
ホームページで収録曲のタイトルをバーッと発表した時驚いたんですけども、Unforgiven 3って何ですか、これは。
Yeah. I don't know. These things just happen. We had a piece of music, and when we were working on this piece of music, we thought that it felt like it could be part of the Unforgiven trilogy, or like it could be a distant cousin to the Unforgiven stuff. So when James came back with the lyrics, what do you know? The lyrics were about forgiveness and redemption and all that. Like I told you, all the songs are about suicide and all this crazy, nutty stuff about finding yourself and redeeming yourself and all this stuff. So once the lyrics were there, I mean, it wasn't let's write a song called The Unforgiven 3. It was something that happened as an afterthought. It was like after the lyrics came back, then it was like, wow, in some weird way, that could be a distant cousin of the first two Unforgiven. So that was a decision that took about 12 seconds to make. So it was like, okay, fine. Unforgiven 3, we don't have to come up with a real title. It's easy. But you know, listen, I don't know. I mean, like I said, there's no great big master plan. It's not some, you know, in 1990 when we made the Black album, okay, I see 3 Unforgivens in our future. I mean, there was none of that kind of crap. We had a piece of music with these couple of riffs, and it felt like it was kind of like the same vibe as the first two, and then the lyrics came back, and here we have the Unforgiven 3. What do you know? I wish I had something like way more like intelligent to say about it than that, but I'm sorry. That's I think people always think that, you know, the guys in Metallica, they have these like great big master plans about it. I wish there was some great story behind it, but most of the stuff happens like as an afterthought, really. I'm not trying to play it down. I'm just saying it's like, okay, cool, Unforgiven 3, next.
シングルの曲がとても長い曲でした。これはまたドラマチックですごい曲ですね。これぞメタリカじゃないですか。
Thank you.
Amazing. Lots of elements.
Yeah.
Lots.
Somebody who heard that song a couple of months ago said that it sounded like the best of Metallica in 8 minutes. All the different elements of Metallica in 8 minutes. I go, can I say that in every interview? So it's just, you know, one of those kind of old school Fade to Black Sanitarium 1 type of songs that just is a journey that you go on and starts in one place and ends in some completely different place. So I'm psyched for people to hear that. It feels like it's a good introduction to the album. And it's coming in a couple weeks. So you know, this stuff's only a couple weeks away. We can start playing some of these songs live. I look forward to that. But we just did a video for The Day That Never Comes a few days ago with my friend, fellow Danish director Thomas Vinterberg. We did it here just north of Los Angeles, up in the desert. It was great. We were standing out in the desert with all these fans blowing sand in our faces all day. It was I spent like the next 3 days like coughing up stuff I should never cough up, that should never go in my lungs, trust me. But it was great. It's we thought that since all these songs are so long, that instead of making videos for them, that we would actually make short films. So instead of talking to video directors, we thought we'd talk to film directors. So the first one was shot by a very well-known Danish film director, Thomas Vinterberg, and I want to keep every one of the singles, or I don't even know if you use that word anymore, but feature tracks or whatever the fuck you call it, I want them to be made by film directors. So it'll be short films, no videos. No more videos. Now we make short films. Because these songs are so fucking long, you know. So it's like, okay, enough of the 4-minute videos. Let's make some proper short films. So listen, it was great. It was awesome to work with Thomas, and we had a great afternoon. It was very easy. Did about 10 takes, and stood there with sand in our faces all day, and then we went home. That was it. It was great. I haven't seen any of the footage yet, but it felt really good.